5454.
Your individual legal problems upon the basis of information contained herein. Instead, contact an attorney to discuss the specific facts and circumstances of your unique situation. The views and opinions of this program do not reflect the views of the Salem Media Group.
Be seated.
It's time for Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt. Todd Marquardt, attorney at law in Texas. If you're a millionaire or a thousandaire, Talk Law Radio is now on the air. Call in with your business law question, your elder law question, veteran aid, Medicaid, build a business to get paid. 210-308-8867. Or ask a question online at marquardtlawfirm.com. That's MARQUARDT lawfirm.com. And now it's Talk Law Radio with Todd Marquardt.
Welcome to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on podcasts everywhere, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, and on talklawradio.com. Now it's time to discover your legal issue blind spots by listening to me talk about the law on the radio. And today we're going to be talking about the Conservation Society of San Antonio with Louis Vetter. But before we get started, let's say a prayer. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the gifts and blessings that you give to us. Please forgive us for our sins, for our mistakes, for doing the wrong thing or failing to follow your will. Please help Louis Vetter and me give good information to the listeners about conservation or development. Help us to do everything we do for the good of your people, for our own good, for your glory. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
In the beginning, there was one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then God gave Moses the 10 Commandments. And now we have municipal, state, and federal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws, laws that impact you without you knowing it. So I'm here to talk about the hidden legal issue blind spots. But before we get to that, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate you having me here.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Louis Vetter, president of the Conservation Society of San Antonio.
Well, I'm a native Texan. I was born here in San Antonio, lived much of my life here. My father was in the Air Force, so I had wonderful places to tour, like Wisconsin and North Dakota. But most of my time has been here in San Antonio. I graduated from Trinity University with a computer science degree. Got an MBA from UTSA. My family's been born here in San Antonio, and so it's a great place for me to continue to have my endeavors. You know, I've retired from USA, and I guess I'm entering my fourth career now, taking care of help the Conservation Society and the missions that we have at hand.
Yeah, that's a long history. How did you get interested in conservation?
I guess it was 20 or 30 years ago. Some of my family's been involved in the Conservation Society in the past, and I thought I would look into it more and really understand what the charter is, what our purpose is, which is really to help preserve and protect all the things that are not just buildings, but culture, nature, and customs. And so it resonated with me. And so I've been a member of this organization. I participated in a lot of different committees, which is how we get our work done. As well, I've been on the board of directors several different times, and now since this last year, July, I've been the president of the organization.
So before you got involved full time, is this
Mhm.
your full time job now?
It is. I came out of retirement to do this. I get paid, about as much as anybody else that never gets paid for a volunteer role.
Hmm.
But that's what I'm doing every week.
And so, what experience do you bring? What did you do before this?
The experience I bring to this is mostly from a business perspective. I've had multiple careers between software development, a lot of marketing and product marketing on business to business issues, as well as I'm a certified financial planner, or have been certified wealth strategist. I've been a broker and a dealer. So a lot of the financial aspects of driving this, it's a multi-million-dollar business. And that's the strengths, and what really drove me to become the president this year is to help bolster what we're doing, because we need a solid basis for this, and we have such a noble purpose. That's why I'm gotten as engaged as I have.
Is this a tax exempt nonprofit, or is it funded by the government?
Well, there's no government funding at all. We have a nonprofit, Conservation Society of San Antonio, which is a 401c4. But we also have a foundation, which is a fully tax deductible nonprofit organization, which undertakes a lot of what we do in terms of preserving buildings and other structures.
Tell us the history of the Conservation Society. When did it start, and what has it done?
Well, it started back in 1924. In fact, we've just completed our centennial year, 100 years
Yeah.
old. And so that's a fundamental landmark. And it got started by several women who were concerned that there was a lot of widening of streets in downtown San Antonio. And the way they were solving the problem, they're just sawing off the faces of buildings, and moving the streets back. And so they tried to protect some of those properties. And sometimes they were successful or not. But one of the major things that helps really establish what we were doing is they restored the granary at San Jose Mission, because it was in complete state of disrepair. And so then working with San Jose, it has become, we helped it become a national park, state park, then a national park. And now it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that's how we really got started. And that's one example of the things we've gotten involved in.
I want to ask you, the listeners and viewers today, to give us your opinion. Call the show at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867, and tell us what you think about this lawsuit that was filed by the Conservation Society of San Antonio against UTSA and City of San Antonio to conserve the State of Texas Pavilion, the former home of Institute of Texan Cultures. Should that be preserved, or should the state allow that to be demolished? Call the show at 210-308-8867. Okay, let's talk more about the work that the Conservation Society has done.
All right. Well, one of the things we have done, excuse me, besides really looking out for a number of properties, pardon me, I did not take my Zyrtec this morning. Probably should have. But we've been engaged for decades now in different elements. One of the things we did, we helped preserve the Navarro home.
Okay.
And the reason why we thought it was really important is because that represented so much of the West Side culture, the Hispanic culture. And everything in that point in the Laredo area was being demolished as part of the 1950s and 60s urban renewal. So we stepped in and we purchased that property and protected it.
I'm glad you brought that up. I want to hear your philosophy on conservation, because you just mentioned the urban renewal. So what are the issues there? Why should we conserve anything?
Well, there's a lot of history to be had. There's elements of our culture here in San Antonio and elsewhere that if you lose that opportunity to preserve it, to save it, to share it with future generations, then you lose so much of your own ultimate identities. And that's why we think what we do here in San Antonio is so critical. And it's not just San Antonio, it's Bexar County and the surrounding areas as well, in terms of our focus. And as a result of that, we've been able to have an impact on a variety of elements. We talked about the San Jose mission. It became that World Heritage Site. But if we had not gotten engaged, we wouldn't have it. The San Antonio Riverwalk, which everybody figures is an institution, well, we helped make that happen. In terms of in the architecture, it was going to actually be paved over. It's going to be channelized and paved over. But we got engaged in that one. And we said, there's a thing we can do. It would be beautiful. And we had an architect design what really became the forerunner of the river walk.
Wow. And that is part of San Antonio's identity.
And you talk about the culture and the spirit of what's going on. So it's not just the fact that the river's still there. It's all the things that happen around there and the legacy that's created for us. And that's the element that we want to, look at for this next situation.
Yeah. So we're going to get ready to take a break. I just want the listeners and the viewers to know that you can call in and give us your opinion at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. Let us know if you want this building to be demolished. Let us know if you want to save it. What do you want that building to be used for, and why? Your opinion matters, and this is your time for public comment, and we'll talk about in the next segment why there has been no public comment on this or no hearings about this. So we want to hear from you, or you can post a comment on Facebook. Just find the live feed and type in your comment. I'll be checking that throughout the show. Or find Talk Law Radio on X, formerly known as Twitter. You can comment there as well. This is Louis Vetter with the Conservation Society of San Antonio. We'll be right back after a minute.
Don't wait until it's too late. Spring is here, and it's the perfect time to review and update your last will or living trust. Have you recently moved, have changes in your health, or had a change in your family? If so, your current documents may be outdated and ineffective. Don't risk your wishes not being protected. At Marquardt Law Firm, our experienced attorneys can help you update your documents and ensure your future is secure. Call today at 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278, or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt on the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on talklawradio.com. Here with Louis Vetter, president of the Conservation Society of San Antonio, talking about the lawsuit that was filed against UTSA and City of San Antonio to preserve the State of Texas Pavilion, former home of the Institute of Texan Cultures. And we're taking calls, so we want to hear from you at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867, or post a comment in the Facebook live stream comment box. Your opinion is significant, and you haven't had an opportunity to comment on this because there's been no public hearings. So we'll talk about that issue. But first, let's talk a little bit about the building.
All right. Well, this building was built in 1968 for part of the World's Fair, Hemisphere 68. And it was put in place by the state legislature as a permanent structure to be used for the benefit and enjoyment of Texans, not a temporary structure. So most of the state fairs, world fairs, they're not there. But that was the intent for the institute. And so it started at that point. Over 50 years, it has been serving the Institute of Texan Cultures Museum, as well as the Folklife Festival. And that's been going on for 50 years. And it's only this last May that the University of Texas moved the museum out of that building into some temporary space that they hope to, again, at some point, put it back where it's available to the public.
So who owns the building?
UTSA, and as a result of that, the state of Texas owns the building. There was a 1967 deed where the city of San Antonio transferred the property to the state and for its purposes to be used as a permanent building, and again, for the benefit of the Texans.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what's the significance of the building? Why is it historical? Why is it something that should be conserved?
One of the principal reasons is it's one of the few remaining elements of this brutalistic design, which doesn't necessarily appeal to everyone, but it is certainly of that character. And it was designed by William Meredith Pena. He's a very well-renowned Mexican-American architect. And it's the only piece of this kind of architecture that he's been involved with, or any of the Mexican-American architects in downtown San Antonio. Is the only one that's left. And it received a great deal of recognition at the time in terms of, its value. And it really represented, when you look at the design and the waterways out front, was the confluence of cultures, because it starts with like 54 different sources of water, and it comes together in one large pool, which kind of reflects that sense of what we're doing in Texas.
Okay. So that goes back to the significance of identity,
Mhm.
of the city's identity. What about highest and best use? Is that the highest and best use of that space?
Well, we would like to think so, because right now the University of Texas is in the process of a demolition permit, having that in place. They're remediating and removing physically elements that have asbestos in them. We have been striving for years to draw attention to this, that fact that there's a lot of reuse opportunities. It doesn't necessarily have to be torn down for a stadium or some other function. The building is rock solid. It's concrete and steel, and it's not going to go anywhere in that context. So it's going to, potentially be a lot of different choices. And some of this has already been studied. There's been proposed ideas about how it might be reused for tech, incubator sites, for a culinary and hospitality site, for potentially even a practice space for the Spurs, or it might even be incorporated into a new Spurs stadium, because it's a marvelous piece of architecture and of a building. It's 180,000 square feet, and it's got 3 floors, and it can be used not all in one place, not necessarily with one client, if you would, or one tenant, but there's so many things that can be done with this rather than just getting rid of it.
And so why does the Conservation Society of San Antonio file a lawsuit for something like this?
Well, time of the essence is where we're at today, because while there's a lot of talking, a lot of town halls, and a lot of, essence about what we might have in Project Marvel, which most part, I think it's just great. So does the society. But the city is basically letting UTSA tear down that building because they own it. They have that permit through different means. But the thing is, the longer we talk, by the end of the summer, it will be no building. It could be a fait accompli where, we can keep talking about it, but it'll be gone.
You can weigh in on this. Your opinion matters to us today. There's been no public hearings on this, no public time for comment. So call the show at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. Does it make you upset that the city wants to spend billions of dollars on new stadiums downtown? Does it make you upset that there's old buildings in town? We want to hear from you at 210-308-8867, or comment on the live stream on Facebook. Just search for Talk Law Radio. Tell us, what are the legal bases for the lawsuit?
Well, the legal basis comes first from the premise that while UTSA does have permission from the Texas Historic Commission to demolish the building, we assert the fact that it's not in full sight of what the true regulations should be and how they have not been fully followed. And the reason why I say this, the state antiquities landmark designation that it's received and the laws associated with it require certain public hearings to be had to be able to embrace whether something gets demolished or significantly changed. Well, these hearings really have not been taken place. There is a loophole in that current legislation that says universities or higher education pretty much can do whatever they want. In other words, if they want to tear it down, they can. And the Texas Historic Commission, the commissioners never really got to conduct a public hearing, which is one of the normal process steps to do that. And so we had that situation. There was an administrative decision made to provide that demolition permit. And so we've not yet had what should be normally a situation. If the city of San Antonio had bought that property and then tried to get a demolition permit, it would not be near so simple. They wouldn't be tearing it down today because the public would have been involved to get their inputs to find out. There's no guarantee that it wouldn't be demolished, but at least people have had a chance to put their voice to it. And there's a lot of people that have, varying opinions about that particular property. But what makes the difference is the fact that the citizens have had something to do because it's their building.
Right.
I mean, this is public land with public money. We should have public input.
I hear you. So the owner right now is UTSA.
That's right.
The plan is for them to tear it down and then to sell the land to the city of San Antonio
That's correct.
so that the city can build a stadium or something on there. But if the city bought the building first and then asked for a permit to tear it down, there would be many more regulations to follow.
You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
And so we've asserted, even in our filings, is the fact that the city is using UTSA as their proxy. Because UTSA was able to get the permission because of the loophole. And so then once that's accomplished, then they'll execute that right of first refusal to buy that property.
Okay. You can call in at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. Oh, do we have somebody on the line? Kathy, you're live on the air. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Yes, tell us how you feel about tearing down the Texas Pavilion.
Well, I'm against it because I was born and raised here, and I used to work at the Texas Folklife Festival. My whole family was involved for years, and ever since I was like 16, I'm retired. So it's just it was a hallmark of culture and the education and fun for the whole family. And it's mostly education because also school buses used to go down there and learn about their heritages and different cultures and how everybody fits in together and works together as a team in San Antonio, how it evolved. There's so many good memories and so much good education behind it.
Well, thank you so much for the call. Let me ask you a question. You had all those memories from going to the Institute of Texan Cultures. If that museum is housed in a different building, could you just continue to attend that new museum?
It wouldn't be the same to me.
Okay. Well, your opinion matters and it's valuable. So thank you for the call. Appreciate it.
I mean, it would be a good idea to have it someplace else, but I went to UTSA. I graduated from there too, but I just don't agree with what they're doing because I think that building and the structure and the environment and the awe that you get when you go there is just totally different. It's just, that building is awesome.
Thank you for explaining that. That's a good point. Thank you for the call, Kathy.
It's just a beautiful site that the kids loved. They loved rolling down the hills. They just loved that place.
Thanks a bunch. I have to end the call. Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye. So that was good input.
It is.
She should, and people like her should have the ability to confront the leaders in the community to let their voices heard.
And it kind of resonates with the purpose of the Conservation Society because it's not just that building. It's all the cultures and all the experiences and all the elements that go way beyond that. Preserving a building is just one of the elements of what we do. And what she's reflected, what Kathy had to say about that, really strikes some of the character. It makes things important.
Okay, so this lawsuit was just filed. Is anything scheduled for it?
Well, probably next week, I expect there'll be some depositions or hearings on this to see how quickly we can at least, slow things down. One of the things I'm really asking for is to put a pause in place to let these hearings be held. Let the city of San Antonio and the school, UTSA, reach out to the THC, Texas Historic Commission, and have these dialogues that they should have in the first place.
So the Texas Historic Commission is a regulatory
Yes,
agency.
it is.
And remind me or help explain, why is it that UTSA wouldn't follow the same procedure to demolish a historic building as the city of San Antonio would have to follow?
For one explicit reason. Universities, educational higher order institutions, they have a loophole which exempts them from most of the requirements for a demolition permit or for hearings and the processes to even to modify a structure. So they have the loophole and they're running right through it.
That's interesting that the same philosophies that would conserve history don't apply to the institutions that teach history.
And interestingly enough, they have a reuse and preservation program, and within their scholastic attributes, you'd think they would kind of like take a lead from that one.
Yeah. Well, we have to take another break, but you can call the show. Let us know what you think. If you want that land to be developed, call us and tell us, and we'll have Louis Vetter explain why it shouldn't be demolished. Call 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. We'll be right back after a short break. Stay tuned.
How many of you remember the Buttercrust Bakery on Broadway? We took field trips there from Carroll Bell Elementary and learned about assembly line production. Everyone there had a different job with a common goal: to make bread and deliver it to the grocery stores. At the end of the tour, we got a warm piece of buttered bread and a number 2 pencil with their blue and white logo on it. I can still remember the smell of that bread baking. Robin Hopp is here with Big State Financial. There are 3 financial stages similar to that assembly line: accumulation, preservation, and distribution. You've worked and saved most of your life, and when you're ready to retire, we will help you with a retirement income plan that you can never outlive.
Todd Marquardt is sponsored by the Marquardt Law Firm and does not attempt to solve your individual legal problems upon the basis of information contained herein. Instead, contact an attorney to discuss the specific facts and circumstances of your unique situation. The views and opinions of this program do not reflect the views of the Salem Media Group.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on podcasts everywhere, and on talklawradio.com. Here today with Louis Vetter, president of the Conservation Society of San Antonio, talking about a lawsuit that was filed against UTSA and City of San Antonio to stop UTSA from demolishing the State of Texas Pavilion building, formerly home of the Institute for Texan Cultures. And we've been taking calls because we want to hear from the people about whether that building should be demolished or not. Do you want another Spurs stadium to be there, or do you want the city to save their money and fix our streets? Do you want that building to be preserved for history? We're going to talk all about that and more. Louis, I want to ask you straight up, is the Conservation Society of San Antonio against Project Marvel?
No, there's elements of it which make plenty of sense, a lot of opportunities. And in fact, we believe that this Texas Pavilion would be a marvelous addition to this. It doesn't preclude anything else. What we're trying to do is protect the building and let it be part of the plan, in which it hasn't been up to now.
Okay. Well, some of the people that send me emails and comments think that we have enough stadiums. We have the Alamo Dome. We have the Frost Bank Center, formerly AT&T Center, where the Spurs play, and we have the Freeman Coliseum. Mm-hmm. If they build another stadium, what are all these other stadiums going to be used for? And you may not know the answer to that question. I don't think anybody does.
I wish I did. It'd be an interesting conversation. But the whole point is, we're discussing the demolition of that building this summer. The decisions to build a new stadium, whether it's there or elsewhere, take your pick, is months, could be years off before we see anything needing to be used for putting that location. And the warmness of how many people really want a new stadium, how many want to fund a new stadium, is really independent of this whole concern. Because if they decide to put in a new stadium, this doesn't preclude it from being in conjunction with existing building. I mean, it can be, it could be incorporated into it. I mean, it could even be a practice facility.
Right.
And, and as, have talked about this in the past, you're not going to put a lot of people in it, but you could certainly make great use of it, even for our wonderful Spurs. Because one of the things I don't want to see happen is, the integrity and the value of our Spurs, because we love them, is to have their character, tarnished because the city or UTSA say, "Oh, we're having to tear this building down for the Spurs." It's not really true in this sense. The decision of where the Spurs have their future home is a separate distinction, because this can still be accommodated.
It could go somewhere else.
That's absolutely true. If they decide to build one more, it could be, I wouldn't even speculate.
Yeah.
As to where it might go.
I've been interviewing a lot of the candidates running for San Antonio mayor, and Project Marvel is something that each of them address in their own way. Tell us about how the current leadership, from your perspective, if you want to talk about this, city council, the mayor, how should they be approaching this type of project with the people in San Antonio?
Well, for the people of San Antonio to have input to it is a critical element, because right now it's sort of a tepid response to whole aspects of Project Marvel and what might come of it and how it might be funded. And so getting more engagement with the public, having inputs. In fact, it was Wednesday that we filed the lawsuit around 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, District 8, Manny Pelez, had had a town hall out in the area, and Eric Walsh, the city manager, and Lori Houston, the city assistant city manager, they came and made a presentation about Project Marvel so people could see it and understand. And of course, we had, a conversation like, well, we can't really talk about certain elements, but it's, again, they presented a lot of interesting things, but it's pretty much been driven and defined by the city of San Antonio and UTSA.
One of the things that upsets people is this has been tried before with the Alamo Dome. People say that all kinds of promises were made to develop the area around there,
That's right.
and that never fully happened. And so isn't that just going to happen again, where taxpayers have to fund the building of another stadium with no benefit to the public?
Potentially so. This is where both the county and the city of San Antonio get engaged, because the county owns the Frost Bank Center, and they've made certain of those promises in the past. So they're having to come to terms with the expectations out of District 2 and how that comes to fulfill what was promised in the first place. And so the concern is, well, we start this one again. And I think that's why there's been some lukewarm reception to some of these elements.
People that have lived here a long time, they remember things.
Yes, they do. And there's some strong feelings about what was expected to happen on the east side as a result of the center going there. And they still certainly have the rodeo and the Coliseum for a number of opportunities. But that's one of the things that the city and the county both will have to come to terms with.
Right. And we have the Final Four college basketball tournament going on here today. I'm sure that there's lots of people downtown right now.
This is true. Yes.
So you can call in right now at 210-308-8867, 210-308-8867. Saturday, April 5th, 2025, talking with Louis Vetter, president of the Conservation Society of San Antonio, talking about the lawsuit that was filed against UTSA and City of San Antonio to stop the State of Texas Pavilion from being demolished this summer. We have a caller calling in, and so we're going to find out what his concerns are. Daniel is calling in. We just have to get him connected. Talking about the State of Texas Pavilion. Daniel, you're on the air live. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much. I love the Spurs. I've always been a fan until they priced me out. But anyway, getting beyond that, they should raise their own money and maybe go to Austin. They might be happier there. But I hope there would be a museum. They tell you there'd be a museum for all the artifacts of Texas history. I just hope they keep their word. But something the city council has done for years is let the people know when something's going to happen almost at the last minute. And we get no input. But we have the taxes to pay for all these things. And if they get another stadium, that's the fourth one.
Right.
It's the fourth one. My goodness.
Yeah, I was thinking that to myself also.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's people behind the scenes, or more likely politicians, who'd wish to erase Texas history.
So besides your concern about the cost of building a stadium, do you think there's value at conserving the old State of Texas Pavilion building?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a place where all the regular people of San Antonio can go rather easily. And, see, there's a lot of people here who actually have some of their old family history in there. I know we do. It's on my mom's side. We've been here since outside the city since 1750, as far as we know.
Wow.
But oh well.
Well, thank you for calling the show.
Thank you very much.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Well, there's another perspective. He doesn't want to pay higher taxes for a fourth stadium.
Yes.
And he values the building itself, just like the first caller.
And I've been looking at the social posts such as this. I've gotten a lot of feedback, positive feedback, where they appreciate what the Conservation Society has done. It's taken a place in the ground where we need to be able to say, hold, let's make sure we're doing it the right way. And so by virtue of this pause, if the city of San Antonio and University of Texas then have to go to the Texas Historic Commission and explain and get involved and hold the proper hearings, we could have a very interesting story about how figure out how to incorporate it, not lose it.
Do you think we can get any of these people on the radio show, on Talk Law Radio, to explain to the people?
I would expect so. The reason being is we've got 28 candidates for mayor and an indeterminate number of candidates for the district. And I would start with the ones that are currently in office to see if they can, share more of this.
So there's a challenge to you. If you're one of the leaders for Project Marvel, come on the show and talk to these listeners who are worried about losing the State of Texas Pavilion and the history behind it. We're going to have to take another break, but just remember, we're taking calls. We want to know what you think about the lawsuit against UTSA and City of San Antonio to stop the State of Texas Pavilion from being demolished. We want to hear your thoughts. What's the value in conserving anything? Should we just let the area be developed for economic prosperity? We want to hear from you. I'm Todd Marquardt on Talk Law Radio. Stay tuned. We're going to take a 1-minute break.
Don't wait until it's too late. Spring is here and it's the perfect time to review and update your last will or living trust. Have you recently moved, have changes in your health, or had a change in your family? If so, your current documents may be outdated and ineffective. Don't risk your wishes not being protected. At Marquardt Law Firm, our experienced attorneys can help you update your documents and ensure your future is secure. Call today at 210-530-4278. That's 210-530-4278 or visit marquardtlawfirm.com.
9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt. On the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on podcasts everywhere, and on talklawradio.com, talking with Louis Vetter, president of the Conservation Society of San Antonio, about the lawsuit that was filed against UTSA and City of San Antonio about whether the State of Texas Pavilion should be demolished. We have Mike. You're live on the air.
Yes. I have a couple of questions. When the Conservation Society files a lawsuit, who funds that? Is it Conservation Society, or do outside interests get involved? Because I know some of these civil suits can get to be quite pricey.
That's a great question.
Well, the first answer is the Conservation Society is paying for this activity. And that's a concern to us, obviously. It's because the money we're spending here is money we need to spend elsewhere in our preservation efforts. But we felt it was important enough, the board of directors approved that we take these actions.
Now, this lawsuit, do you think, is it intended to overturn everything, or for the way the regulations are set up, is it just a matter of stalling something that inevitably they will eventually be able to do?
I think the best answer to that is it's not inevitable that they will be able to tear it down or get to do that. What we're really asking is that the city of San Antonio and the university have conversations and to work with the Texas Historical Commission, because there's a series of reviews and responses that are necessary. And what we want to do is require them that they comply with the Texas Natural Resource Code and the National Historic Preservation Act, that these are all under. And it doesn't guarantee it won't get demolished, but it forces everyone to take a much more proactive view. And what we're really striving for is for its reuse, its incorporation to Project Marvel and the elements that would go with it. So it's not
Okay.
necessarily hard-nosed in that sense.
See, I don't think they ought to tear it down, but I think instead of let it sit there and deteriorate, I think they need to come up with something, and then they better figure out how they're going to pay for it. Because if they tear it down, it's just going to be a vacant lot because the Spurs are not moving downtown. I don't think the city's going to go along with that, or the citizens aren't. I mean, it's they got too many stadiums now. I mean, it's just not going to happen.
That's a great point, Mike.
Yeah.
If they tear down the building and then there's no stadium put there, then what?
We have a 15 parking lot for 15 years.
You can put some Longhorn cattle in there or lettuce patch.
That'd be novel.
Thanks for the call.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
So I just wanted to follow up with that. Some of the news reporting has raised some issues about the cost to maintain the building. Can you speak to that?
Well, yes. There's been $1 million allocated by the state legislature to the University of Texas to help maintain that structure. And so there's been some of that. Plus, even looking at UTSA's own studies of 2 years ago, that the structure itself is sound. The fact that there's maybe at most $7 million of deferred maintenance, but it's not an extraordinary amount of money to continue to be able to reuse and incorporate that building. Many times I've been in conversations, and UTSA says it's going to take $178 million to upgrade and restore that building. But that's for the current standards for modern museums. And this isn't intended to be a museum. And so, that number is, misleading in the sense of it's not a big number to make it usable.
Okay. So right now, the museum Institute of Texan Cultures is in storage.
Since May, they shut it down, closed the doors, and put it in storage.
And so what was the use in doing that? Why did they move? Why did they want to move out of that building?
Well, there's probably a couple of reasons, and probably want to get the answers directly from them. But my take on it is the location at the southeast corner of Hemisphere is not necessarily as conducive to walking to, and they want to pick up foot traffic from the Alamo, basically, because again, it's tourists walk around.
I see.
And so there's an empty parking lot behind there. They'd like to be able to go and buy and relocate and build a new place.
Okay. So we've been talking about conservation throughout the show, and I sort of think that's an issue when people think of their own legacy. You talked about the identity of the city. As a estate planning attorney, I talk about legacy with people every day about what they're going to leave their family members, and if they're going to leave somebody an inheritance, what do you hope that your beneficiaries will achieve by receiving that? And so I think here too, you brought up the conservation of that building is part of San Antonio's identity now. What do you think the legacy is going to be if we redevelop everything and all of these old buildings are just go by the wayside?
We end up with a plaque somewhere. One of the things that we did as a conservation society when the move was to tear down the Woolworth buildings, a lot of the culture and heritage and the history of what went on in terms of desegregation movements and such. So when they wanted to reimagine or reposition what they're doing with the Alamo, we took a very strong stand. We had a very effective coalition. And as a result of that, the facades, those buildings have been preserved, and it's going to be utilized for a very modern and very effective museum. But we didn't lose the culture and the looks of what went on with it. And so that's just an example of you don't have to have an absolute, do it my way or no way, but to be able to protect the things that have that culture reflected.
When Mike called, the most recent caller, He was asking about the cost to the Conservation Society of San Antonio. And I just wondered, as a follow-up question to having to fund the lawsuit and pay attorney's fees, do the members typically know that that's part of something that the society would do?
Well, the members are aware of what we're doing. We notify them all when we file the lawsuit of what we're, accomplishing, and we also, for the fact that the board has approved these actions. I think we're in a good position to prevail, so those costs may not be there forever. Again, but it's important enough. I mean, we've done things like this in the past where we've taken a position and it's cost us money. And the sad part, that's the same money we can use for other purposes. I don't know if I mentioned we provide that $100,000 worth of grants every year. Well, it's not necessarily that we're taking it from those funds, but it's again part of the strength that we have financially, and that's from our members and sponsors and such. But it's important enough to do so.
I was looking at one of the statutes, section 191.0525 of the Texas Natural Resources Code, and also section 191.173. 1.173 is what gives you the right to file a lawsuit to have the courts weigh in on this, right?
Yes, because again, we assert that part of it has to do with the deeds and the transfer of it. The fact that they have an obligation to retain this building permanently for the benefit of Texas. And so if this is not being upheld, then we have the opportunity to file those complaints.
Well, doesn't the deed restriction allow for it to be demolished and for something else to be built in its place?
No, it's very specific in terms of the building itself. The Texas Pavilion, built there in 1968 for Hemisphere, is that it was to have a permanent nature and also to stay in place and be, whether it's entertainment or other elements, but that the citizens of Texas could continue to use that structure, not that land.
Okay, so we've been talking about the State of Texas Pavilion, formerly home to the Institute of Texan Cultures, which has moved out because the UTSA wants them to have a different space. And so now it's empty.
That's right.
And it's scheduled to be demolished when?
Well, their goal is to have it done by the end of the summer. They're already actively taking work on that structure. You drive past there and all you see is construction fencing around it. They've already removed the flagpoles and the entrance, the tiles for that. They've been required to preserve those, but hopefully that will have more of that than just flags and flagpoles.
Okay. Tell us also about the sign.
Oh, yes. Inside, anybody that's ever been to the Institute of Texan Cultures inside that building, the first thing you do, you'll see this very large, beautiful neon sign of the state flag. And, you just are overwhelmed by it. Well, surprisingly, they've, University of Texas is asking the general public to make donations to help relocate that sign to their new location once they have that up and running, which kind of struck me as ironic because, with the combination of the UTSA as well as the medical school budgets, they have a $2.2 billion budget. And so I think they'd probably be able to find some money within that without having to ask the citizens to pony up another $10 a piece to move the sign.
So the issues that I keep hearing over and over again from the callers and people that comment on social media is some people really enjoyed their experience going to the museum, Institute of Texan Cultures. Some people really enjoy the building itself, the State of Texas Pavilion. Some people value development and economic development of the city above of the history of the city. And some people want to save the most money because they don't want the city spending money on preservation. They don't want the city spending money on building new stadiums. They want the city to spend money on roads and water. I want to give you the last word, Mr. Vetter.
All right.
Talk to the people.
Well, the situation is this. I'm a citizen as well, so I want to make sure our money is well spent. But what we're trying to accomplish through this action is to make sure that we don't spend money twice, that we don't spend, probably $4 or $5 million to tear down a building that then to build something new on, particularly if it can be incorporated into future plans. And this is what it's all about. So we're looking out for the citizens of San Antonio. We want to help the city. We want to help UTSA to do these things right.
Thank you for joining me. I really enjoyed having you as a guest.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being here.
We'll talk to you later.